Kelly, thank you so much for joining in this lockdown series. It's great to see and talk to you again, and we'll be covering off some topics that I know are close to our hearts, especially when we get talking about the tactics that companies use around sort of employing industry experience over versus sort of general sort of competence and attitude sort of skills. So I can't wait to kind of get our teeth stuck into that one. But to sort of start proceedings, now we're sort of coming into this sort of post-COVID era, and given your track record in sort of managing change, do you see there being plenty of opportunity for companies to kind of get involved in plenty of change programs over the course of the next few months?
Yeah, I think we'll see some post-COVID recovery programs springing up. Companies have had to respond quickly to the changes required to get through the past few months. And they'll have been done at a pace and probably quite tactical rather than the measured, controlled approach we'd normally take to change. So I think now it's about taking stock and continuing to look at the threats, because it's not gone away, but also look at the opportunities that may have arisen over the past few months. And there will be some. So it's how companies can then work to exploit those.
Yeah. And do you think do you think people sort of deal with these situations with the people that within those organisations, or do you think they'll sort of need to sort of outreach to the sort of specialists and people from the outside just to give a level of sort of pace and direction to things and a bit get stuff done before the end of the calendar year? Because I imagine although we've had this, there's going to be a lot of pressure on companies to kind of get stuff done.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're waking up to a new normal, so they're going to need the staff that they've got to focus on their BAU predominantly. If you can outsource change to change and transformation experts that can hit the ground running, then I think that's probably the way forward.
And is there, thinking about the benefits then associated with people coming in from the outside, what are the sort of pros, I suppose, in doing that? Because naturally some business owners and leadership teams might just think, well, we've got to do this. Let's cut the cake with the existing people and see if we can get it done that way.
I think the benefits are you can bring people in from the outside, and they bring fresh perspectives, so they're not entrenched in the way things have been done before, which is more important now than ever. You're coming in with a totally fresh pair of eyes, and that's not to mean that you won't use or utilise the experience of the existing workforce, but whilst they focus on their BAU activities, you'd be leaning on them as subject matter experts to inform the direction of travel. But you're not going to have your blinkers on. You'll just look at where you've got to get to and find the quickest path there and the safest path there.
Yeah. And I know we've talked about this before. What's your view when companies do go outside, when they look at the sort of the must-have skill of having industry experience versus those that can come outside with a certain level of capability that haven't been exposed to that same industry?
It always baffles me, as you know.
Yeah, you and I both.
I think they're missing a trick. Just because you've delivered in one industry doesn't mean you can't deliver in another. I mean, years ago, I went from the NHS to Deutsche Bank. You're not going to get anything more diverse than that, I don't think. And it's not about having delivered in that industry, but you want to employ change professionals that are inquisitive and curious, can do the background research themselves into your field of work and what that means, but then rely on their core skills of delivering change and transformation. And that's what they bring to the piece. So
yeah.
If you get,
so
no, carry on.
It's more. Sorry, carry on. Sorry.
I was just going to say, if you get stuck in that same industry, you're just going to bring more of the same, and you bring a level of assumption. Whereas if you don't know the industry, all bets are off. So you ask the stupid questions. I know there's no concept of stupid, but you will ask things like that. You will probe a little deeper than perhaps if you just sort of think, well, I know all that because I've done it before.
Yeah. So there is certainly mileage then, isn't there, in sort of organisations, rather than sort of focusing on how they've, uh, sort of hired in the or hired against a certain position in the past, to actually break it down into its component parts of, well, what are the sort of competencies and what's the attitude of people? Because surely there's a piece there that can be discussed around a table to kind of identify, well, if we need somebody to inject a form of change, what is it that that person needs to do, and what characteristics they need to have in order to get it done?
Yeah, absolutely. Why would you want to create a tick list of somebody that's delivered X project in X way for X company? What value does that bring? What you want is somebody that can be dynamic, can bring some energy, a good leader, good stakeholder manager with some commercial acumen. So, for example, it'd be far more beneficial if you're procuring a new service that you've got somebody that understands a bit about procurement and contractual negotiation, rather than they've bought this specific product in the past.
Yeah, because I imagine that if you, let's say, I don't know, if an automotive organisation wants to inject, or that they initiate a program that you've sort of described, if they don't want to buy something, well, surely if you've got somebody who's been in that same industry, they'll probably know who the providers are, what the pricing models are. So, will they question as much as somebody who's perhaps been outside, who perhaps just maybe more inquisitive and sort of challenge more? I don't know.
Well, I think more fundamentally, as a project or program manager, you'll have your procurement experts working on that. They'll be your in-house people working to the strategy that's been set by the organisation. It's for the project manager to organise that and make sure it's procured in the right way and at the right time to deliver the project on time. So it's more about those softer skills, pushing it along, being tenacious, keeping the energy going. That's really key.
Yeah, and I think that sort of that having that level of energy and pace, especially when you're transforming something, is kind of key, because you've got that political landscape that sometimes may be perceived as that you're fighting against in order to wanting to achieve the overall outcome.
Yeah, and I think as an external, you're not brought into the politics of the situation. You're dealing with facts all the time, and I think if you're good at what you do, you present those facts, but you recognise that it's up to the business to make the decision around the way they want to proceed. So you can present the facts, present the options, you deliver then against the decision, make recommendations, but fundamentally you're there to make things easier, to streamline things, to present stuff in such a way that people can make the difficult decisions, and then you just get on with delivering it.
That's it. Yeah. Well, that's. I suppose ultimately that's one of the key objectives, isn't it? If they trigger something like this off, that they want the results and they want it within a timely manner. What they don't want to do is just keep, stretching the thing out, because then you're going to, things become tired and people sort of lose that sort of focus, I suppose.
Yeah, people start to suffer with change fatigue then, especially if you're doing too much change in one go. People get too tired of it. And when I say people, I mean the workforce. It becomes hassle rather than excitement. And really what you want to do when you're going through significant change and transformation is create that energy and create that buzz so that people want to be part of it. So it's sensible to moderate what you look to change in one go.
Yeah, awesome. And how have you, because naturally I know we're sort of talking about this now, we've had a few months of sort of uncertainty, but have you sort of found the lockdown period?
Professionally or personally, or both?
Both, why not?
I thought you'd say that. Professionally, it's not made much difference to me at all. I was already in a contract which was home-based anyway. Started that one beginning of February. So the changes that followed didn't impact me. I was more aware of the way it was impacting other people in the organisation, that this was a significant change too, but at least I could just continue with what I was doing, just being aware of what was going on around me. So that's been absolutely fine. I'm used to working from home. I'm used to working remotely. I'm self-sufficient, so no problems there. Personally, I think there's been some positives that come out of it. It's probably slowed a lot of us down, which perhaps
true.
a bad thing. I have missed out on my holidays though, and I've missed out on socialising like everybody else. But we have my friend introduced virtual gin tasting, which has been a revelation of lockdown. Actually,
I like the sound of that.
I thought you might.
Get my wife on that one. She'll love it.
It's been great. It's the nearest we've got to a night out in lockdown. So.
Oh, perfect. Well, look, thank you again for sharing your views. It's as ever, they're hugely valuable. And if anybody's got any comments, put them below, and let's keep talking about it.
Absolutely, pleasure talking to you as always.
Thank you. All the best.
See you, Simon.